All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Meg Andrade. Welcome to Talk About Employment. Today, we are going to interview Miss Kim Scroggins. She is the Director of Business Services at the ARC Baltimore and a graduate of Leadership Baltimore County. And I'm very excited to talk with her. Hey, Kim.
Hello. Hello.
All right. So, Kim, can you just tell everyone what your role is at the ARC Baltimore and what it is your team does?
Sure. I oversee the business development team or the workforce development team. And our goal is to assist the people that we support in finding competitive, integrated employment in the community in a field of their choosing. So we help bridge that gap, helping them realize their full potential, helping them to become a true asset to other businesses in the community.
Right. And I would say that you play a role like in the community in terms of how you approach employers and that piece about educating employers, and then also the approach you take with the people that we support. So how would you describe your approach with employers when you talk to them about hiring from our workforce?
Sure. I think one of the biggest things that we need to stay focused on is the fact that it is not charity. When I am talking to business owners, I am looking at how they're running their business, asking what type of business needs that they have, and how can we help add value to their bottom line. Because I think that's probably one of the most important components, that they realize that we are not out seeking charity, that the people we support have skills that can contribute to the overall success of their business. Have it be maybe they have more skilled workers taking time from their responsibilities to do other tasks where those tasks may be better suited or allocated elsewhere to free up those resources. But again, it's education. A lot of business owners have misconceptions about employing people with disabilities. They feel like it's going to be a huge undertaking, or if they hear the word accommodation, they think it's something that's going to be costly or expensive, when an accommodation could be merely just having a checklist. Or I have on my glasses, wearing glasses, maybe that helps me see a little better. But it doesn't have to be anything that causes any type of disruption to their business. But I think it also gives them a competitive edge too. Um, as a consumer, you want to sometimes go in the store and see that there is a diverse workforce, that maybe there's somebody that can understand your point of view. And I think a lot of employers maybe miss that, not intentionally, because everybody they have these wonderful diversity and inclusion statements, but our job is to educate them and putting those statements to work.
Right, right. I agree. And I think that you have like a great example of like a law firm. The attorneys have the parts of their job that bring in the money. They're
Mhm,
billable hours, and that might not include things like scanning documents,
mhm,
filing, sending out the mail, putting together packets, those kind
mhm,
of things. And so what we can do is go into a business and see, okay, what are your operations? And then what are the tasks that you do that bring in the money? And can we allocate some of those tasks to someone else to keep you running efficiently and free up some more of your time? And like you
mhm.
said, then it helps the bottom line of the business. And that's the most important part.
Right. Absolutely. I agree 100%.
Right. And so sometimes we might work with someone and we can just pull a job description. They might say, oh, I'm interested in working here. I want to do clerical, or I want to work in food services. And sometimes they're able to do everything on that list of duties, and they have the
Mhm,
qualifications. And so we might just support them in terms of, getting them ready, interview practice, resumes, things like that. And then there are other times where we have to go in and maybe customize a job, which would be
Mhm.
like the example of the law firm and the clerical stuff. So one of the things that I love the most about you is your approach when you are interacting with the people that we support, someone who has a developmental disability looking for a job. So can you tell us about your approach and your outlook?
Sure. I don't look at the disability. I'm looking at the person. We support adults that just happen to have a disability. So I treat them the same way I would treat anybody else. There are things that you have to be accountable for. There are things that are expected in the workplace of anybody. And, one of the things that I always tell the people that we support is I can ask for an accommodation for a lot of things. I cannot ask for an accommodation. I will not ask for an accommodation for poor performance, not coming to work, and just overall not doing what you're supposed to do. Because I think we have a pretty good system in place with supporting the people that we work with in the workplace with the job coaches. That is why they're there. And I just think that, they shouldn't be treated. People with disabilities are no different than anybody else. And they need to be treated as an adult because they are an adult, and they need to be responsible for their success or lack of success. And I'm doing them a disservice if I don't treat them that way. We can't say that we are empowering people with disabilities to make decisions if we don't support them in their good decisions, but also let them know when they're making poor decisions.
Yes. Yes. Oh my gosh, I wholeheartedly agree, as you know. Okay, so then speaking of that, in terms of, letting them make their decisions about where they want to work and supporting them in their skills. So we do have job coaches who, once someone finds a job, they do get paired with a job coach who can help them learn those tasks, say if they need a little more training than what's generally provided by the employer.
Mhm.
But with that being said, a big part of being employable and being competitive, amongst all the other candidates, it's not just the job skill. So if
Mhm.
you're working as a porter and you're doing, cleaning duties, or you're working in food service, it's not just about can you make the sandwich and can you
Mhm.
and disinfect correctly, but there's also all of those other skills and the professionalism and communication skills and all of those other things that I think when people have a developmental disability and they're going through school, or even at home, sometimes other people put so much focus on the disability
Mm.
or on the accommodations needed that sometimes we forget to teach people how to be accountable, how to answer their phone, be dependable,
Mhm.
how to speak professionally. You might be a really nice, likable person and your communication with your friends and family is great, but do you know how to communicate on a job? And
Mhm.
that's really important. And I feel like we do a good job at the Art Baltimore of helping people to strengthen or even realize that those skills are needed.
Mhm.
And that's a big part of finding a job and then also keeping a job.
Absolutely. And I think with that, that's where we as job developers as well as the coach play a huge part, because the bottom line is everybody's not a great communicator. People that don't have disabilities are not necessarily great communicators, but if we take the time to build that relationship with the person that we're supporting, because again, we are supporting them, we are not doing this for them, we are an aid, a guide. But if we're taking the time to build that relationship and really get to know the person, when the job coach fades out, the employer still needs to understand, how do I communicate with somebody that maybe is not a great communicator, or maybe they don't communicate in a traditional form. So I think just having that solid foundation and that relationship, it does the person first and foremost a great benefit, but it's also a benefit and a coaching tool for the employer.
Right. Yeah. So that like you said, when the coach fades out, they have those natural supports.
Right.
And in addition to the communication, it could be just other ways that they interact, or
Hmm.
areas that they need more accommodation in, and just for that employer to be comfortable and know that they have the tools,
Hmm.
and also know that they can come to the job coach or us as job developers, if there's a hiccup or if something's needed.
Yeah.
So then when people watch this, I want them to come away with, if they're a person with a disability, maybe they're a teenager or they're getting ready to exit high school, or even if they've been out of high school, but they haven't worked competitively before, I want them to come away with some things that they can do to prepare themselves if they're in Baltimore to come to the ARC, so that we can help them get a job, but wherever they are, to be able to go and get that support to find a job. But also, how can we help other job development teams in the state of Maryland, across the country? What do you think some things are that job developers can do to find and create more placements in the community? And what do you think people can do to make themselves more employable?
Sure. First and foremost, as job developers, we really have to dispel those dated ways of thinking and understand that we are in a time where people with disabilities are not just cleaning anymore. And we need to stop making that a go-to. Oh, this person, has a disability. Let's go find a housekeeping job, when we've had people scanning and doing other, duties in engineering departments and hospitals. I think, we have to really look at the person and stop trying to make their disability their identity, and really see what they're good at. And, you know, I think when we do our intakes, one of the things that we say is, what have you done? What would you like to do that you don't have skills in? Creating an environment of a willingness to learn. So even if they're going back into a field that they're familiar with, you still have to have that willingness to learn. And I think we need to seize every moment as a coachable moment. So if you're driving down the road with the person that you support, find something relevant, even if it's something that they do socially, because it's about a level of comfort. And from an employment standpoint, I think if more employers really look at their business practices and how much time they spend on tasks and duties that don't directly bring money back into their business, like you said, scanning, and duties like that. If you are a lawyer, meeting with clients and being in the courtroom is what's going to put money back into your business. But also, I just educating employers that it's not this huge undertaking because you've decided to diversify your workforce and hire people with varying abilities, that that person comes with an entire support team to make that transition a lot smoother. And again, that it's not charity. I think that would be my big takeaway for business owners. We are not asking you for any type of special treatment or to treat this person any differently than you would any other staff person. For the families, I would say empower your kids. Stop making the disability, the reason why they can or can't do certain things, or why, an employer didn't give them a job, and I have to explain, I think we have to explain to parents all the time that this is competitive integrated employment, which means that when we're talking to employers, we're saying, hire this person because they are a great candidate. They have the skills that you're looking for, and they're going to be a valuable team player and contribute to the overall success of your business.
And that, I think, no one, disability or not, is going to have all of the skills and experience
Hmm.
needed for any particular job when they start. That's
Hmm.
working is how you get experience. But I think it's that accountability. It's
Hmm.
that you're so used to, as parents, helping our kids navigate, or protecting them, all of these different things, that's that important piece of going,
Hmm.
no, your disability doesn't prohibit you from doing this. And
Mhm.
maybe we have to find a different way to do it than how other people do it. Or maybe we have to work on some prerequisite skills, but you can get there.
Right, and I think it's definitely about establishing um, guidelines, and that's with everybody, with the parents, with the person, and with the business. A lot of times I think what I found over the past few years as parents, we have one idea of what we want to see our children do or what we think they're good at. And a lot of times it is not directly in line with what they want to do. And when we started looking at our intake process and started asking questions like, why do you want to work? That puts that accountability back on them. So, we can say, okay, you said you wanted to work because you wanted to do X, Y, and Z. That there has to be a big picture, and you have to sometimes paint that picture for them and just kind of remind them of it gently. And I think that makes a huge difference. But again, it goes back to treating adults like adults, making sure that everybody has a part to play, but that person is the key component to their success ultimately.
Right. I think that's a perfect way to sum it up, is that everyone, they are an adult.
Mhm,
Everyone should have the autonomy and that self actualization of, this is what I want to do, this is why I want to do it. And that, just thinking of parents, wanting one thing for their child, and their child's like, that's not really what I want to do,
right.
and I'm not a child anymore. That's a universal truth. And so that
Mhm,
kind of just brings it back to just treating everyone like the human that they are, and giving them the dignity of choice, and
mhm,
also the dignity of risk. And I know that's something I say all the time, because we
mhm,
hear that, let them choose all the time. But then when they choose something that scares us a little bit, it's like, oh no,
mhm,
might not work out. But also, then it's the same thing for the job developer. We have to mitigate all of these perceived risks out there
mhm,
that these employers have. But also, I think a way that we can empower employers is by not leading with the disability, by, not that you want to hide anything, but by leading by example, is
mhm,
basically, I guess, what I'm trying to say. Showing employers by the words that we use and the way that we talk,
mhm.
um, and the expectations that we have of the job candidate. That's how we reinforce this idea that we are all capable, and
Mhm.
we bring some equity into the workplace in that way. So, all right.
Yeah.
So I think your tips were, this is not charity, right?
Not charity.
Treat adults as adults,
Yeah.
hold people accountable, and
Mhm.
um, find out what people want.
Yeah,
Apply
I think
to
I
it.
think that that's key. As job developers, we can't just think it's a, one fix for everybody. You can't just go out and blindly look for jobs and say, "Oh, I found you a job," if it's not in line with what they want to do. They are the person they have to be there. We want them to be successful, so we want them to be somewhere where they want to be.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And I think I don't want to leave without bringing up just a few examples of some of the jobs that people have found during COVID. I know it's been a crazy year, and a lot of people, unfortunately, in every community have been laid off, have lost their jobs. The workplace environment has changed so much across many industries, and I know people are struggling to find jobs. And I know that I've personally heard from people with disabilities and their support circles recently, well, there's not going to be any jobs right now, or, no one's going to hire, these a person who has a disability right now because they're not hiring anyone. And I think that you and I have found that that's not always the case. And
Mhm.
job developers, we've had to roll with it. It's just like teachers have had to learn how to teach over the internet, on
Mhm.
Zoom. And so interviews have started to look different, and
Mhm.
resumes have started to look different. And the way so we've just had to adapt and change. So maybe we can just talk about a couple of the different opportunities that we found that have maybe been a little more unique with COVID.
Sure. I know we have a few people working at the library, which is different. Um, we have people working in libraries and oh my goodness, I'm drawing a blank. I'm sorry.
I said that, and then it was like, wait, what?
Well,
um,
but you know what? And I think it just goes back to over this past several months. Like we know we've had all these great opportunities, but I really feel like since COVID has started, we have had a tremendous amount of success because we did not take that backseat approach and say, okay, well, this is going on. People aren't hiring. And I think we found just the opposite that there are people that maybe aren't motivated to go to work because of unemployment or because of COVID, but businesses want to open. Businesses need people that want to come to work. We have quite a few people that are with Stella Maris. They are essential employees because their job directly impacts how that facility runs. And I just think we found a niche, with that, saying, hey, well, maybe you need people to do X, Y, and Z. We've had people working over at LA Fitness when they wanted to reopen. We know gyms are all high touch areas. They need people to maintain those areas if they want to stay open. So just finding a niche, especially right now, is super important to the people, we support, not just with the ARC, but any agency.
right. And I think, and that's a good point. Like across industries, places need sanitation employees now.
Mhm.
They need people whose sole job for their entire shift is to go disinfect and clean those high touch
Mhm.
areas. They need people taking temperatures at the door now,
Mhm.
helping people fill out health questionnaires. And that has been a big source of jobs for us. And here in Baltimore, I know like we have focused in on that, and we've been able to find people. And also, like you said, in some of these essential businesses, nursing homes, assisted living, where they need people, and maybe the people who previously worked there are uncomfortable right now during COVID,
Mhm.
even with all of the PPE and precautions.
Mhm.
And we've been able to have candidates who are ready and willing to work, and they have found a way into dietary services, into even direct care and support
Mhm.
in these assisted living and rehabilitation facilities.
Manufacturing has been huge for us, and we've been trying to break into that industry, but they need people, and now companies are being forced to look at alternative workforces, even though I hate using that term, but it just means that people that are typically maybe not considered first, and now they are having to consider other people. And I think the light bulb has gone off for some companies saying, wow, why didn't I think of this a long time ago? Companies struggle with people wanting to come to work. Well, we're telling the people that we support that if you want to work, you have to go to work. You have to be on time. You have to be prepared to work when you get there. And that's what these employers are getting, people that are willing, ready, and capable of working.
And show up every day on time.
Yes.
That's, again, a great example of how it's our job to educate employers. When people hear alternative workforce, it's not necessarily about the workforce, it's
Hmm.
about the employer or the hiring manager's idea of what is alternative. And
Hmm.
COVID in that way has like given us this extra push. And I think it's opened employers' eyes to
Hmm.
it's not necessarily alternative. It's always been here. And
Hmm.
with the proper supports and accommodations in place, which often are very minimal or don't cost anything, we have a workforce.
Hmm.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I feel like there's so many topics we can dive into, and hopefully we'll do some
Hmm.
more interviews. But I think this was a really good overview of what we do as job developers and how people can prepare themselves for work. So
Yes,
thank you.
absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye bye.